Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Greater Washington Urban League's On Track radio broadcast. I'm Roland Turner, your host. We are really doing a deep dive today, and I'm so excited because we are here to educate our listeners and tell you all about National Youth Homelessness Awareness Month. And I have a huge group of guests in the studio this morning who are going to really give us all the information that we need to know to help youth homelessness. Joining us is Kawanza Billy. She is the DC Action Youth Mobilization Manager. Also joining us is Rachel White, and she is the Deputy Director of Youth Advocacy with DC Action. And then I have three wonderful guests who are all our wonderful youth today. They are members of our DC Action Youth Advisory Team. They are Rohan Young, Arlie Shepard, and Kennedy Salaru. Once again, I'm Roland Turner, your host. With that said, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am really excited about this topic because it's a topic that truly, really needs more attention and needs more of a spotlight on it so that we can talk about what is truly going on in our community as well as finding ways that we can help. So with that said, I'm going to just start off our conversation this morning, Kawanza, with you telling us a little bit more about DC Action and why it was so important to highlight National Youth Homelessness Awareness Month.
Yes, thank you so much, Roland, for having us. As a former Civic Engagement Chair of Thursday Network, National Advocacy Chair for Urban League, and now the Youth Mobilization Manager at DC Action, it's no mistake. As soon as I was aware of this, I wanted to make sure we included Urban League. So thank you for allowing us on the program today. So just a little bit about DC Action. We are an organization that uses data, focus groups, collective action to bring equity and change to young people, for young people across the district. Rachel might be able to give a cleaner definition of who we are, but that's pretty much what we do. And under my body of work, I was able to form our youth advisory team, who has self-defined their vision as to collaborate with DC Action's team, individuals, and other organizations to further incorporate equity, youth wellness, and youth-oriented programming through DC. And they have a mission to engage with community and policymakers to host spaces, provide resources, create educational initiatives, and strategic partners in order to foster youth wellness across the district. So I get to work with these incredible individuals. There are 10 of them, some who are currently experiencing homelessness, which will speak a little bit more about how that can look differently. There's a spectrum of homelessness that young people experience, and it's not a one-size-fit-all problem. So it is not a one-size-fit-all solution that we're asking for. But the young people will speak a little bit more about that later. But we did want to highlight it because young people are definitely undercounted across the district who are experiencing homelessness. And we want to make sure that we are able to bring resources and also create policy to support them. So we won't find them again in the adult system. So that's just some of the work that we do within our Youth Economic Justice Coalition.
Now, once an urban leaguer, obviously always an urban leaguer.
Yes.
And I know you have a way that you have tied this into the Urban League's mission. So can you talk about that aspect of the conversation?
Yes. So if you know Urban League, we are a premier resource that serves communities who are experiencing homelessness or instability. Part of our mission is to just make sure that people are economically sound. And the Greater Washington's portfolio, where they do support with housing, that's one of our core values, one of our pillars across the country, especially here. As mentioned, the Greater Washington Urban League has a utility assistance program. We do the ERAP, or Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and GWUL also has the Emergency Response Fund. In addition, as a member of the current GWUL advisory team, we're encouraging members of Thursday Network and the staff to join commissions such as the Housing Commission, the Equity and Poverty Commission that DC has, so we can stay on the forefront to know what's happening across the landscape, not only to support with the programming aspect, but see how we can support on the policy side as well.
Excellent. Now, Rachel, I want to bring you into the conversation. Can you give us an overview or a scope of the problems when it comes to youth homelessness?
So the first challenge in addressing youth homelessness in the District of Columbia is that no one knows quite how many young people are experiencing homelessness. Depending on who you ask or how you count, there could be anywhere between a few hundred and 10,000. While the district government reports 1,745 youth experiencing homelessness were served in fiscal year 24, according to the Urban Institute, an estimated 1 in 5 district youth are experiencing housing insecurity, which is equivalent to 9,894 youth in the district. The experience of homelessness is harrowing for anyone, but it is especially damaging to young people. It robs them of their safety, security, and a stable environment at a critical time in their physical and socio-emotional development. Homelessness limits their access to education, healthcare, and opportunities for growth. It exacerbates their vulnerabilities and exposes them to the dangers of exploitation, addiction, and chronic poverty. The causes of youth homelessness are numerous and complex. Firstly, it's systemic racism, family conflicts sometimes, abuse, poverty, and lack of affordable housing all contribute to the problem. Mental health issues and substance abuse often coexist with homelessness, which further complicates the path to stability. It is our obligation to end youth homelessness as a collective. We have the responsibility to create conditions that allow individuals, including young people, to lead dignified and secure lives.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I know Kwanzaa, the DC Action Youth Advisory Team, actually created a campaign to really address and highlight National Youth Homelessness Awareness Month. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So the Youth Advisory Team creates campaigns based on some of the work that we're doing within our coalitions. Youth homelessness is one of the things that we're working on in the Youth Economic Justice Coalition. So when we met, I think maybe our first meeting that we had, several young people expressed interest in housing justice as well as food apartheid and food justice. So when we found out it was National Youth Homeless Awareness Month, we brought it to them and asked them what they would like to see and do, and created a campaign organically through what they were interested in doing, which is very important to DC Action or having any youth advisory board. You want the ideas to come from them. And so they thought podcasts and some service campaigns as well as a digital campaign. But yeah, they created it, and here we are today.
All right. Well, I'm excited to talk to the youth this morning. So we're going to turn it over to them. And Kwanzaa and Rachel, thank you so much for starting us off this morning. Now we will start off once again with our youth team members. So reintroducing them, I have Rohan Young, I have Arlie Shepard, and I have Kennedy Salaru. So welcome everyone. All right, I'm excited to talk to you all. Let's get started with having you explain what youth homelessness looks like in DC and why it's such a crucial issue for teens.
Okay, I'll be the first to take this one. Good morning, everyone. I'm Arlie. So youth homelessness doesn't have just one look, not just in DC, but everywhere youth homelessness has a lot of different looks. For example, it could be a teen who argued with their parents and it was kicked out of their home. Or it could also be like somebody sleeping on their friend's floor or couch surfing. Youth homelessness comes in a lot of different ways. And the reason it's so critical to youth, especially, is because this is a time of development. So, youth homelessness is basically impacting their development in a very significant way. It's impacting their education, it's impacting their emotional and physical development and things like that. So it's a very, very critical issue and is something that needs a lot of attention, especially because youth are such a vulnerable group. And when youth are out on the streets, although that's not the only way youth can be homeless, they can be easily taken advantage of, especially because they're in a stage in their life where they're developing still.
And also, I just want to add on a specific aspect of health that is also like greatly impacted is also the mental aspect. The mental aspect can have a big toll from experiencing homelessness. That can go into a mixture of just having more different anxieties or depressions. It can be a fundamental like breaking point for mental health.
Absolutely. And we're so passionate about mental health here at the Greater Washington Urban League. So thank you, Roland, for bringing up that aspect for us this morning. Now, what are the main causes of youth homelessness here in the district?
Good morning. So through our research, we found three main issues, and the first one stems from domestic violence from inside the home or other familial disputes that cause youth to have to leave. Usually there's internal fights or arguments, and a lot of guardians and parents kick youth out. There's also mental health issues, as Rohan has touched on, due to inadequate support within school systems, within homes. There's not a lot of support to help youth that have struggled with mental health issues. And the mental health issues then become a catalyst for fighting and disputes with parents and family, which can also later lead to drug usage and very unhealthy and toxic relationships outside of the home, which leaves youth to be kicked out. And we've also found that financial factors play a huge role. Family members who once were in positions to financially provide for teens and who are then unable to support them due to sickness, death, or other reasons cause youth to be homeless.
To touch on the financial part, a lot of this can stem from systemic issues as well. Systemic racism is something that often causes poverty within communities of color. So that's definitely something that we're about to touch on in a minute.
So who are most vulnerable to becoming homeless, and why are certain groups like LGBTQIA plus and Black youth more at risk?
Yeah, so I can talk about this. Specifically, minority groups like Black communities or LGBTQIA plus communities are more open to youth homelessness just due to the fact that they are already at a bigger disadvantage of just in life in general. Like, we know that there are struggles of being Black, and there's also struggles or disagreements that can happen with being a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. If that comes into a matter of fact of, oh, you come out to your parents, but your parents don't agree with that, then that causes another thing that can happen regarding like the homelessness aspect and just having a place to live. So though there are some reasons why specifically these communities could struggle from youth homelessness, but also there are just some other groups as well, like Native Americans, people with pre-existing health issues or severe like mental health or substance issues, at-risk teens or kids living in unstable households. Like, there's just many different groups of it, but these are the reasons why these groups suffer the most.
And I want to add on, especially when it comes to queer people, a lot of the time it can also not be just being kicked out by their parents. A lot of people run away from home to escape abuse, especially physical and mental abuse. So I wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention some personal anecdotes. As someone who's both Black and queer, I understand the issues in the community. I have a lot of queer friends, and although my mom personally is accepting, I have a lot of friends whose parents aren't as accepting, and I've seen firsthand what having unaccepting parents can do to someone, and how it can push them further away. And when you combine that with being also a person of color, the intersectionality that happens further isolates these groups of people. So
To further touch on Black youth susceptible to facing homelessness, when certain youth are in environments, in unstable environments, where their parents may not have jobs, or they may be prone to losing their job often, it creates a very unsustainable cycle for youth to live in, and not having that guardianship and that close relationship and sustainable living inside the house causes a lot of youth to find that on the streets and find a new community outside while facing homelessness or risk of being homeless.
Now, I want to stop and do a quick station update, and then we're going to continue our conversation. You're listening to On Track on WPGC Radio. This is the Greater Washington Urban League's On Track radio broadcast, and I'm Roland Turner, your host. This morning, we are talking all about National Youth Homelessness Awareness Month, and I have 5 wonderful guests joining me in the studio this morning. Earlier, we heard from Kawanza Billy, DC Action Youth Mobilization Manager, and Rachel White, Deputy Director of Youth Advocacy for DC Action. And we have 3 youth members of our DC Action Youth Advisory Team, and they are Rohan Young, Arlie Shepard, and Kennedy Salaru. Once again, I'm Roland Turner, your host. Now, could you share some of the challenges that homeless youth face in their daily lives, such as balancing school and the need for stable housing?
good morning. I'll be the first to answer this one. So youth homelessness can cause a lot of issues, especially with instability. So, for example, if a teen is kicked out or if their parent dies, they may have to take care of a sibling, or if they're kicked out for being pregnant or a parent of a child, they may have to take care of that child as well while being homeless. So that is extra expenses for them, and that is also extra time that they have to spend on top of being a youth already. If they are still in school, they cannot attend school full time. Most of the time, they'll have to be looking for housing or searching for programs, jobs, things like that. A lot of the time, that will take up their time of school and work. And usually, if they're in school, it's harder for them to find a job. And if they do find a job, that also may get in the way of their academics. And they may struggle with expenses from not being able to find a job or not having sufficient hours through being a teenager or through being in school, or just not being able to find a job with sufficient hours in the first place. Youth may also struggle with drug addiction. Drug addiction is quite prevalent in homeless youth because a lot of homeless youth struggle with mental health problems. Drug addiction, people with mental health problems are especially vulnerable to drug addiction because it's a way of escapism for a lot of people. And another problem that youth can face is crime and violence. A lot of youth who are homeless will face these issues, especially younger youth, because they are more susceptible to being taken advantage of by those around them or those older than them. A lot of youth may have to engage in sex work, which can, they may be taken advantage of and forced into doing that kind of thing, or force into doing that kind of thing to pay for their expenses. And that also may introduce them to violent situations as well as sexual diseases. A lot of homeless youth may struggle with sexual health and STDs because many youth who engage in sex work don't have a way to get tested, and they also aren't engaging in it in the safest way. So a lot of youth can struggle with that as well. To speak more on mental health problems, as mentioned earlier, a lot of homeless youth already had mental health problems before becoming homeless, and a lot of youth may develop mental health problems while being homeless, and the experience of being homeless can absolutely worsen mental health problems for many people.
I just wanted to add on, specifically regarding like mental health and homelessness. A lot of people, like what Arlie was saying, to move to like drug use. Like that's a big form of self-medicating. Like specifically, since they are homeless, they don't have a lot of health opportunities. So therefore, they have to move into matters of survival, which is a big thing of youth homelessness, where they go into self-medicating to just try to like pass the trauma and et cetera. And also like just a matter of moving into different kind of works, like sex working and et cetera. It's just a matter of survival due to the lack of having a home, which causes a never-ending process of not having enough. So they have to move to these like external type of opportunities and jobs and et cetera, and these things to try to survive.
And in light of balancing school and the need for stable housing, it puts homeless youth at a very disadvantaged position when they want to find pathways to jobs or even post-secondary education, like college preparatory resources. There's a lack of that in DC, and that's a huge challenge for homeless youth.
Now, what immediate help is available for homeless youth in DC, and how can they access these services?
For emergency housing, youth should reach out to Sasha Bruce Youth Work, the Covenant House, Zoe's Doors Drop-In Center, or call the District of Columbia Emergency Shelter Hotline at 1-800-535-7252. Healthy Babies is another option for parenting youth. There's also the option to sign up for a free library card at any 26 of the DC public libraries, where there's free Wi-Fi and computers that will grant you equitable access to fill out applications for housing, programs such as a Youth Hope, or anything else that may require a computer or Wi-Fi connection. You can also use the computers without signing in by asking for a guest number at the librarian's desk. For food, youth could also go to the capitalareafoodbank.org or the Storehouse Food Bank, serving community members with monthly food drive initiatives.
Also, just to add on, another way to help others regarding youth homelessness is just to donate to these different places that are helping. Like you can donate to Capital Area Food Bank, Central Union Mission, Sasha Bruce Youth Work, the Covenant House, Stand Up for Kids, Washington, D.C., and like Wanda Alston Foundation. These can help a lot of people in different ways by having these different supplies that these big corporations and foundations can further help youth homelessness to try to prevent it and et cetera. So your donations do matter. Also, volunteer work is really encouraged. You can volunteer at most of the mentioned organizations or with your school and at many places, because also a lot of people just like to see that they care about the certain subject and that they are not alone, or just that simply people understand it. So therefore, volunteer work is very needed and it's liked.
As he said, you can volunteer at most of the aforementioned organizations, but you can also volunteer with your school. And if your school doesn't have a volunteer organization or any opportunities for you, that's why you can be the first. You can spread awareness. You don't have to wait for others to speak out or to start donation drives or to volunteer. You can be the first. You can share with others. You can urge others to act. When people see that you are doing something, they are more likely to join with you. So you don't have to wait for somebody else to do something. You can speak up first. You can do first. You can act first.
I want to ask each of you, what made you decide to serve on the DC Action Youth Advisory Team, and what your experience has been like?
So the reason why I chose to be a part of the youth advisory team for DC Youth Action was honestly because it mixed with a lot of my interest, which was about like specifically advocacy and these like worldly topics, but also these significant issues and things like that that are specific to my community. Because it also correlates with like another activity that I do, which is debate. So it goes kind of hand in hand. So I get to also help people while also arguing to do my favorite hobby.
Sound like a future lawyer over there.
That's the plan.
All right. You hear that, y'all? Okay. Arlie?
Actually, I was sent the information for the program by one of the directors of WPGC, also known as Washington Urban Debate League, because I'm a debater. And he said that he thought that this might be something that I'd be interested in. So once I took a look at the information, he was right. It was something that I'd be interested in. I looked over everything and I thought like, wow, this is something that I can do. And I am, as somebody who's a punk, I'm very passionate about helping other people. And I'm also very passionate about, I'm passionate about helping people, whether that be politically or just mutual aid, things like that. That's a lot of things that I've learned through the punk scene, but also just through my friends, any kind of community that I'm in. So I'm very passionate about these things. And when I saw the information and realized that I could join and actively make a difference, more difference than I've made before, then I realized that this is something that I wanted to do.
I first heard about DC Action Board through a mentor from the Washington area Women's Foundation, Miss Chica, as a 2022 Rockstar awardee, and as someone who loves to do civic engagement. She thought that this program would be something I would find interest in, and I'm very grateful to have joined this program because monthly I also participate in the Youth Advisory Council for the DC State Board of Education. So when I hear about nurse shortages or other issues affecting the DC community, I can then think about how I can pursue action and build initiatives at DC Action to change various wards and communities for the better. One highlight so far for DC Action was a training a few days ago about power matrix and understanding the different power various individuals have and how to harness your own power to affect environments and to inspire change.
So, Kwanzaa, you get the last word. Please give us your any closing remarks.
Thank you. First, I want to thank again you for last minute when I made the call. Again, once an urban leaguer, always an urban leaguer, being a yes. And just really giving a shout out to our youth advisory team, especially those who were able to work on the script and not be here today, and those of them who were able to participate. We are formed to really make sure that youth voice is in our agenda and our advocacy work at DC Action. That's why we have a youth advisory team. There are 10 members, but our work is grounded around what our Youth Economic Justice Coalition works on, which is housing, mental health, expecting and parenting youth, as well as housing. We also work with our OST, or our Out of School Time Coalition. OST is a robust coalition that just had a hearing and turned out over 100 people last Thursday to support the universal OST bill. Our Youth Economic Justice Coalition is rebuilding. So between now and hopefully March, we'll really be able to get back into our working groups and they'll be seeing more of our young people. But we're also building our base. So please stay in contact, follow DC Action on Instagram, on LinkedIn. If you see anything coming up in your feed, please follow us and stay engaged. Because the young people, though they're a team of 10, we have some other young people who are part of the providers and the organizations we support.
Awesome. Thank you so much for blessing us this morning with this wonderful group of young people. You and Rachel are doing a fabulous job, and the rest of the team over at DC Action. Once again, my guest, Kwanzaa Billy, DC Action Youth Mobilization Manager, Rachel White, Deputy Director of Youth Advocacy for DC Action, and our 3 youth members of our DC Action Youth Advisory Team, Rohan Young, Arlie Shepard, and Kennedy Salaru. On behalf of the entire Greater Washington Urban League staff, our president and CEO, George H. Lambert Jr., and yours truly, your executive producer and host, Roland Marie Turner, we thank you for listening to On Track on WPGC Radio. On Track is a community service of WPGC and the Greater Washington Urban League. Look us up at www.gwul.org. Once again, I'm Roland Turner, and please have a productive day.